Alright, so now that I have the injection pump all repainted, it's time to go ahead and put it back into the tractor. Now, if you don't have this set to accept the tractor, I'm going to link another video I made explaining how to get the engine into time. So, I'm going to go ahead, oh, hello, leaking already. I'm going to go ahead and remove these little plugs I put in here from where I painted. And my motor's still lined up. I'm going to slide that pump down in there. Go ahead and put my washer and nuts on it. So those are just kind of finger tight. I'll take and pull off the little window here on the front. And I'm going to line my timing marks up and tighten down the bolts. Alright, so now I got those cinched down. I'm going to go ahead and put the cover back on with a new gasket. Alright, so now I have to reconnect the feed line, which is full of diesel fuel for some reason. I'm going to reconnect that feed line and then the pump return back to the tank. The feed line is MPT, so be sure and put some pipe dope on here. I like this Permatex thread sealer with PTFE. I wouldn't use Teflon tape. I don't think it'll withstand diesel fuel. I'm just going to wipe off my excess pipe dope here. Alright, so now we're ready to put some diesel to it and bleed the pump. As you see, all of my lines are still loose. So I've got to add a little diesel to the tank from where I drained it the other day. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll start to prime this pump. So I'm going to see if I can get a better shot of these priming with my GoPro. So there's going to be a GoPro in the shot. Sorry, but it's so I can get you guys a better picture of what's going on. I'm going to actually aim it at this front injector line right here, if I can find somewhere to mount it. So now, first thing we got to do to bleed this pump is come in here and turn on the diesel fuel itself. And hopefully mine will not leak, because the O-ring I had in it apparently leaked. So I actually took one of the old ones out of this injection pump and stuck on there. Now that we got the diesel open, and we have all the injectors open, right here on our filter, you have a brass screw on top. There's also a brass one down here at the bottom, but hopefully this brass one here on the bottom you don't really have to mess with. Go ahead and crack that top one, and you should start to see some bubbles coming up. And that'll get your diesel down your feed line and up into your filter. Now sometimes it can be a pain because it will want to airlock. This kind of looks like what mine's wanting to do. So I'm going to plug it back up. Let's see here. We're out of gear. Since we're working the side tractor, we're going to go ahead and lock the brake. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to spin the tractor over. And you can do this one of two ways. You can either use a starter or you can pull it off. I'm just going to use a starter. But what I want to see is I want to see diesel fuel squirt out of these nozzles. So let's start spinning it over. And you should watch right here and you'll eventually see diesel pop out of there. Just one thing to note, you need to take your throttle and hook it up that way and open up your injection pump. Otherwise it's not going to throw any diesel fuel. Slip of the mind there. I still don't have mine anywhere down there yet. Okay, there we go. You see that right there? While I was sitting there fooling around, I just had a bunch of diesel pop out of that filter because I did crack it back open. Alright, so we know we got diesel into our filter. We should be over towards our pump. So now my starter's cooled off for a few seconds. We'll try it again. Like I said, keep your eye on that fitting right there. I'm just letting the starter cool back off a little bit. Because right now, at the moment, it does not matter. I mean, it matters, obviously, you know, whether you're in time or not. But it'll still throw diesel out even if your pump's out of time, which hopefully if you follow the video, it's in time. Because if you're throwing diesel and it still doesn't crank, your pump's out of time, or there's something mechanically wrong with the tractor itself. But once these start pushing diesel out, it should happen in pretty good rapid succession. So now you just saw it coming out, and I actually saw it on cylinders 3 and 4 before number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach all of my lines. Now you can do these one at a time or all of them. And sometimes it just depends on the tractor itself as to which you can do. Now right now I do have the throttle lever wide open. Well, now since I have diesel up there, I don't want it wide open, because whenever this tractor does hit, if I have it wide open like that, the tractor's going to take off as far as like RPMs are concerned. And speaking of taking off, I know I mentioned it before in another video, be aware of runaway diesel. So have a way that you can cut the fuel or the air to this tractor if it tries to run away on you. The easiest way is going to be to cover the air intake with something, like a board or something. Don't use your hand, but just take like a board and, you know, close up the air intake and starve it for air. Alright, so let me get the GoPro off of here. And hopefully that got a real good shot of the injector's priming. So I'm going to take the throttle and stick it back towards idle. Now this tractor should start hitting and should fire off. It will run rough at first. That was 1800. That's kind of as high as it wants to rev at the moment with the way I have the throttle set. However, as you can see, compared to the beginning of this video, it did not lug down. So that knife blade cross piece on my governor was my problem. Now I just have to fine tune it. Okay, so now that we have the injection pump installed, bled out, and the tractor does run, you're going to go ahead and run it to operating temperature. Now, I do have a new gauge and everything, and I'm not 100% sure if it works. So I just reached up here to my upper radiator hose and kept filling it. It feels pretty warm. It doesn't feel 180 warm, but I think it's close enough that I can go ahead and start adjusting. So the first thing we're going to do is going to be the idle speed adjustment. Now to do that, you're going to take your touch control lever up here on the dash, and you're going to pull your lever down. You can see the linkage moving. And then you're going to push it all the way back up to the stop where your idle would be before you kick it over to shut your tractor off. Now when you have that set there, your proof meter should be reading 600 RPMs. If it is not, there's a little Allen here that I believe is a 3/32 with a jam nut. Well, if you need to decrease your RPM, you're going to spin it outwards. If you need to increase your RPM, you're going to spin it inwards. The only thing about that adjustment, and I don't like the way the book tells you to do this because you have to kind of go back and forth on this. This adjustment here is going to dictate where your idle is in the pump. So what I would suggest you do is to go ahead and pop that off, lift your lever forward, and then kind of ease it back. And you'll see right there it kind of like springs a little bit. That's your idle, because then when you go past that is off. And it's very slightly noticeable. So sometimes you can feel it pretty easily, other times you cannot. So like right there's idle, there's off. So kind of set that there at your idle. And as you can see, mine, I've already got kind of adjusted outwards. If I spin it backwards to line that up, that's now my idle. There's off, but you hear how it pops. That's not happy. So this throttle lever, you want to be pointing straight up when it's off. There's the idle stop. Okay, so I got my throttle lever at my idle stop. I'm going to come back in here now and push it to right there where it hits. Now I'm going to hook my lever up. And I did spin it a couple of times to get it off of that. Now that spinning a couple times is going to be important because you need an amount of dead travel, which you kind of establish later on. But if you get it to line up at your stop, you know, your soft stop here, go ahead and spin it a couple of times out, and that'll get you pretty close. So now we have our stop at idle up here on our touch control. We're going to crank the tractor and we're going to see what my RPMs are. And I'm going to try and talk a little bit about what I'm doing, but you're probably not really going to be able to hear me. So let's crank it up. So mine's actually sitting right at 600. But like I say, if I needed to adjust this, you would turn that in to increase or out to decrease. Since mine's set, I'm going to go ahead and just hold that Allen and tighten it down. to about 620 maybe, so I'm okay with that. But see, now look at this. You see where my touch control lever is? It's not pointing forward. And because of that, you hear that noise. I'm going to go ahead and just take that off. So this is the part that I was talking about where it kind of makes you go backwards and forward a little bit. We're going to crank the tractor up and we're just going to ease this backwards until we establish 600 RPMs without this hooked up. And then we will adjust this cage to line up. And I may have to come back here and loosen this up to increase it so I can get my dead travel. It's a lot of back and forth to fine tune this, and it can be very aggravating. Lining up, but my dead travel's not correct. So it's a little straighter now, but still not right. And then I had to turn it inwards to shorten this linkage to make that happen. So whenever I do that, I'm probably going to have to come in here and move this nut to get my idle speed back up. See, like there, I moved it so far that the tractor did not want to idle. It was idling about 500. So I'm gonna have to loosen this back up now and turn it in just a little bit. Let's try it again. My dead travel, or my shut off, is still not there yet. It should be right there. And see, and I got it like way off. But the problem with this is if you set it like that and you go to idle, you're nowhere near idle over here. You're almost at full throttle. That's why I say this is a pain in the butt to get accurate. Let's see where I'm at right there. that one got me pretty close to shut off, but I guarantee I'm not going to be idling at 600. That's at 900 RPMs there. However, I do like my shutoff. It could potentially be a little better. That there feels pretty good for shutoff. So there's my idle on my hand control. Well, see, now my hand control felt great. However, I was idling at about 1200 and I had no adjustment here. So I say this is really aggravating. See where I'm at right here. And I'm still just not happy with my shut off. So like I say, that right there should be fully shut off. And that's going to be way too high at idle. Yep. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to skip my idle step, and here's what I'm going to do. I can feel that pump wants to shut off right there. So I'm gonna crank the tractor with it right here, and I'm gonna adjust this to bolt on, or to clip on. And that's gonna be with the throttle at the stop. Oop, a little too far. Got a low RPM, so I'm going to bump up my idle screw here. Okay, I'm still not 100% happy with my hand throttle location when it cuts off. As you can see, it's kind of pointing to about the 1 o'clock position here. However, unfortunately, I believe that's how it's going to have to be on this tractor. Basically, what I did there was I unhooked this throttle link right here that you can see in my fingers moving, and I rotated this pump back until I just barely felt it wanting to catch, and that's catching the to where it almost wanted to stall out. It's kind of like that stop right before it kills the fuel. So I put that cage on there, and this is all with the throttle, the touch lever at the stop. Well, when I did that, the tractor was idling 450, 500 RPMs, so it was not happy. So then I came in here to my little idle adjuster and I spun it inward, little Allen I turned in. Well, that increased the RPMs to 600. Oh, when I did that, you heard me kind of rev it up just a little bit. Once again, using the touch lever. However, when I would pull it down, like there's the stop, I had to pull it to about right there before it would start increasing. That's your dead travel. And I had about 3/4 to an inch measured from right here at this point, this distance here. You want that to be about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. And I think mine's closer to 1/4. Here, I'll show you what it does on the throttle lever with it running. See, like right now, we're up against the stop. Crank it. About 620. About 620 RPM. But listen to the tractor. See that? Very hard to notice it. My dead travel. Now I could go in and add some. If I wanted to add some, I need to shorten the length of this rod. If I want to increase it or lessen the dead travel, I need to increase the length. That was turning the buckle in 2 times. See how it moves much further? Spun out 1 time. About 1/2 inch of dead travel. And you want that because if you do not have this, your governor will activate in the injection pump. And you won't be able to achieve an idle. Like I say, that's unfortunately where my throttle is going to want to lay. Now I could possibly come down here at the bottom where it's put together and maybe do some tweaking on it to get it to actually go straight up. However, this is okay. And it is what it is. Okay, so the last adjustment that we can make is our high speed adjustment. And you do that by turning this bolt right here. And as you see, there is a wire here with a jam nut and then the bolt. Now on that, your high speed is going to be determined by your transmission. The Selecto speed and the 5-speed are going to have a top RPM of 2430. The 4-speed is going to be a top of 2230. Now, I think on the 861 I have it set at 2200 RPMs, which is plenty fine because the only time I ever rev it up that much is on the road. This one I don't know what I'm got it set at. If it's 22 to 2100, that's where I'm going to leave it, because I'm just iffy on turning these things almost 2500. So I'm going to rev it up and see where it goes, and if it's in that 21 to 22 range, I will not mess with it. Now if you want to adjust this, if you turn the large screw out, that lever will go further, RPMs will go higher. and vice versa. You turn it in, the lever can only travel so much, your RPMs will lower. So it's probably going to get loud here, but I'll try to edit the sound a little bit to not blow your eardrums out. But we're going to see, or I'm going to see what it revs to. Went to $2 grand. So I'm gonna leave it there for now. Like I say, I may come back later and adjust it a little higher, but at $2 grand, I'm okay with that. Actually, start throwing some oil out there. Once you get all that adjusted, just make sure everything functions like you want. And that's it to rebuilding, reinstalling, and adjusting your injection pump on one of these Ford 172 diesels.